Hey y'all, hey, and welcome back to another session of Meditations with Marigny. And tonight because I've made one video. I had a graduation to attend, and I thought that I would jump on and do this video right quick. And I want to talk about something. I saw a podcast of a counselor that I typically listen to, and it was someone who had written in about infidelity in a marriage. And it just got me to thinking, and someone had asked me a question a while back, and I just wanted to kind of key in on this, give my 2 cents, and let you guys know what I think, and I also want to know what you think. So I want to read a scripture in reference to sex within the marriage. And it says, this is 1 Corinthians 7, chapter, verse 3 and verse 5. And it says, the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent for a time, so that you may devote yourself to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. That's the word, y'all. Now, I feel like I could really delve into this a little bit deeper. So I think maybe tonight I will just give a overview, and then I may come back over the weekend and give a little bit more detail on why I have a particular perspective about things. Or I may break it down and talk about infidelity from the man stepping out of the relationship, and infidelity based on the woman stepping out. I think I'll give 2 different points of views. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. I only have about 20 minutes, so we're going to get it crammed in during this time. But I'm just thinking about that particular scripture. Husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. And, we talk about sex and we talk about relationships, and oftentimes many marriages are broken up based upon lack of sex within the marriage. It doesn't always mean that the marriages don't survive, but typically somebody is going to find a means to fulfill that relationship from outside. And I wrote down a couple of notes on this one because I did want to be a little bit more specific. And basically what the caller was asking was, is there, I wrote down, forgiveness after cheating has occurred in the marriage or relationship. And I really want to key in on marriage, because as I gave more thought to it, if the cheating had taken place while I was still just dating my husband, I don't think that I would have gone through with the marriage. And now that I look back on it, for those of you that may have seen my videos where I talked a little bit about my story, there's a big difference between someone that maybe cheats one time in the relationship and someone that is a part of their lifestyle, or that's how they actually function in relationships. So one of the things that I personally feel is that what happened to me in my marriage, it didn't just happen to me. I feel like that's kind of what my husband would have done with whomever he had been with, because the commonality of the relationship that he already had with the woman who he had the affair with. It really, he didn't even probably see it as an affair, because this was something that was kind of common between the two of them, and they always, just kind of fell back on one another. And that's something that, I'll key in on and just say, if you meet someone, and this was kind of like my last serious relationship after my divorce, if you have somebody that they have a relationship where that relationship has folded back over and over and over again, you can pretty much hang that up. They're going to continue with that, because that relationship has an open door. So you have somebody that they typically fall back on them when they're not in a relationship with somebody else. Those soul ties are still hanging around, and it makes it very difficult, especially when children are involved. Like if it's a former mate or somebody, or a former wife, and then there are kids involved, it just makes it really difficult for a new person to establish ground that is going to be successful in a relationship without it being stressful. Like I can see now where when I was married to my husband, how I was trying to force that component, and I was trying to force him to let that go and not have that relationship. I can see that now. I couldn't see it then, but I can see it how I wanted him to, let that relationship go. And the truth of the matter is, when he came into the marriage with me, he already had that relationship. And there's nothing that I could have done about that. I cannot say, I thought that our relationship was in a good place. So when he had the affair, it was a complete shock to me. There was not anything going on in the relationship that would have drove him out to do that. It had everything just to do with his own personal decisions and his own desires. And most of it was connected to some type of financial component because of who he was. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that little tangent. I guess that was my rant for the night. But I wrote down a couple of points. And so one, I said mainly I'm talking about for marriage, because when infidelity takes place in a relationship, yes, you might be somebody's girlfriend, or you might be their boyfriend, or you might be their live-in situation, but you're not married to them. Which means that if we completely honest with one another, yes, we might say that we're dating someone exclusively, but until you're married, you don't really have a commitment according to what biblical principles mean. They have the option to still have an open door, and they might not be honest with you about that, but until you all have solidified that relationship, that this is the direction that we're moving into, and I would even say maybe up to being a fiance, then yes. But from a marital standpoint, do I think that relationships can survive after infidelity? And my answer would be yes, I do. I believe that even in my marriage, although it did not survive, it didn't survive not because of the one incident. It did not survive because of multiple incidents. And because the marriage was not fragile when the affair took place, when I found out about it, so I won't say when the affair took place, but when I found out about it, it was not in a fragile place. And so therefore, we had the ability to work on it. But the truth of the matter is, as I looked at it, y'all got a little piece of hair that's sticking up right there. I can see. But the truth of the matter is that, I was working on it, but he wasn't. He was still doing the same thing he had always been doing. And I don't say that in a negative way. I just don't think that he had a value on the vows like I did. And one of the things I wrote down is talk about old flame in a relationship. New person cannot compete with that. And I just felt like, when you have an old relationship, nobody can compete with that. Like if there was a true strong connectivity that's there, other people can't really compete with that, especially once sex is involved. If it's something that is just a on the surface type thing, you might have a connection, but there's not a component where you have come together. Once that coming together has taken place, it's a whole different level, because the love and the intimacy, I believe that God built us in a way that we are supposed to be drawn to our mate. That's why I don't believe that it was meant for us to have, so many. Now, back in the day, yeah, they used to have all those wives, but they also were men who had money to handle those wives. They could put them all up in the castle. The castle gonna have 100 rooms. So yeah, she got her suite over here. This person got their suite over there. You on the west wing, we on the north wing, somebody else on the south wing, and then we gonna all come together because the king is gonna be the king. And I mean, I'm being silly, but I'm being serious as well. And I'm being silly because this is, to me, a very sensitive subject. Like somebody could see this video and it could be the determining factor that's going to make and or break your relationship. It could be the thing that helps you to say, let me stick in here a little while longer, or it could be the thing that actually says, no, let me go ahead and let this go. And so I want to make sure that I'm very clear about the fact that I do believe that my marriage could have survived if it had been a one-time incident. But just the more that I look back on it and the more that I looked at what I went through, I would never suggest that anybody go through that for the sake of a marriage, because it was unfair to me. It was unfair for me to do that to myself for the years that I did it. And then it was unfair to him. And as I shared with him about her, if y'all really love each other, like, I just don't understand why you just don't go on and be with her. Like, let me release you so you can go do what you need to do with her. And the truth of the matter is, they really didn't want each other. I think it was just a point of convenience. But it was a convenience at the cost of me, my feelings, my heart, my emotional connectivity to that. Because what it did do, anytime you've had someone that has cheated on you like that, like, it just puts so many thoughts in your mind about yourself. Like, what is wrong with me? Why is it that he would do it to me? Why is it, what was I doing wrong? What could I have done better? Like, I went through all of those emotional offsets. And what I can tell you is, cheating has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with the person that does the cheating. And so when people make that decision, they have the option to, bow out that way. And so for me, yes, I will say that it's difficult for a woman when infidelity takes place. Is typically she's gone. She is gone emotionally. So if it's a female that's watching this video and your husband has stepped out, and you would want to know whether you think you should stay, I think if you all are able to get some certified counseling and possibly some spiritual counseling, you would have to then just weigh the odds to see whether or not that's something that you all would be able to work through. If it's a man that has gone through it, the only thing that I say about marriage surviving from a man's perspective, and I know it's going to be somebody that's going to say, oh, me and my wife, we worked through it, this, that, and the other, and that may be true, but that's not the norm. Because typically when a woman leaves, she's already emotionally and mentally disconnected. And so once she leaves physically, she may stay in the marriage, but she would probably not be in the marriage. And especially if it's somebody that she has connected with. If it's somebody that she loves, like, I could tell you that if it's somebody that she loves, like, it wouldn't make a difference. Because if she's stepped out, a lot of times just emotionally, she's not going to be willing to put in the work to get back to where you all need to be, unless she still has a love for you. Now, it just depends on what type of relationship that you all have. If it was a relationship that was already fragile, and I wrote down this note to use this as an example. With me being an educator, I like to give real life examples because I feel like that helps people to connect. So a lot of times you might find that my channel has things that are a little bit more like a storytelling, or it's just a conversation. But I recently was having some issues with one of my teeth, and like sometimes when I bite down, I would feel like just a little discomfort. And so this last time when I went to get my cleaning, I told the doctor about it, and they ran an x-ray, they looked at it, and he came back and he said, you have a little hairline crack in that tooth. He said the tooth is still really strong. It can withstand, normal wear and tear. He said, but eventually, if you keep, I like hard candy, and he said, you keep eating that hard candy, it's going to completely crack that tooth. He said it's a really small hairline crack in it right now. He said, but just over a period of time, based on your age and based on just basic eating habits, you're going to need to, he was telling me I'm going to either have to have a root canal and they're going to have to cap it. And he was like, but the tooth itself is healthy. But with that crack in there, he says, just like anything else, as long as you keep biting down on it, it's going to eventually get bigger. And I'm saying that to you because if a marriage has not had any challenges, it can withstand infidelity. But if it has a hairline crack in it, it's not going to be able to keep taking hits like that. So if it already had challenges that one led to the infidelity, it makes me think that unless the two people are willing to do the work, I personally believe that any relationship where both parties are willing to do the work. And a lot of times that's the hard part, because sometimes you might have where the man is doing the work and the woman is not. And then you got other times where the woman is doing the work but the man is not. In times like this, it's going to have to be both parties doing it at the same time. And I'm going to really close this out. I want to leave this kind of open-ended and maybe come back and do some conversation about what happens when a man cheats. Like, how do we feel? I can tell you how I felt. What areas do you then have to build up confidence in, because now that has been torn down? And then I would love to come back, from a male's perspective and talk about what I've heard most men say that have kind of gone through that, or what I've heard them say, like if it were to happen, how they think that they would feel. I will say this, a woman, we are recipients. So a lot of times people don't think about that. We're a recipient. No matter how bold she is, how much of a boss lady she is, we are the recipient. And whenever there is someone that is giving to another woman, a lot of times it is difficult for a man to push past that. And for a woman, because we are the recipient, that's why, you meet somebody and they get married and they take on the characteristics of the person that they're with. That is intentional. There should be a bonding that takes place, that you start out here as two individuals, and then over a period of time, it becomes like this. So that's why sometimes when you meet certain couples and people like, man, y'all been together so long, y'all look alike. Y'all been together so long, you finish his sentences or he finishes hers. And it's supposed to be that way. But I really want to dove into one of the things I wrote down is neglect versus needs. Did he cheat because his needs weren't being taken care of? Or did he cheat just because it was just greedy? In my situation, it was just greed. You could not say that your needs weren't being met. Matter of fact, I might could have said that mine wasn't being met because you didn't have any interest. Okay, I had to just throw that out there for y'all. But I want to read that scripture again. The husband should fulfill his marital duties to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Do not deprive each other, except by mutual consent for a time, so that you may devote yourself to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So just as we think about this, for whomever is listening, if you would like for me to pray with you in that area, like for someone to have pulled up this particular video, it would make me think that they might need some assistance and support. And so I'd be happy to pray with you and to pray for you, and just offer any type of not counsel, but just advice of what I did to get through that process. So if you like my video, I'd love for you to click like. If you know somebody that could use it for their benefit, you could share it with a friend. And then I would love for you to subscribe and jump in the comments. Give me some feedback on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have a good night.